How's it? We are going to be making a grunge tutorial. You're going to pretend you're a rapper in some band and you're going to be putting out a new album. You're going to get a nickname for yourself. This last name is Choi, so he put Choi Boy. We're going to put some vectors. So think of a creative name for yourself. It has to do somewhat with your name of some way, either first or last. And let's go ahead and get started. So in Photoshop, Command N for new, and we're going to create a new A4 document in print. But before you hit OK, we are going to have the same width. So see how it says 210? I'm going to copy and paste that so it's more of a square. So 210 millimeters, and hit create. And now we have a square. Command plus to bring it up a little bit higher. Hit T for text. I'm going to use Andrew Park as picture. So instead of Andrew, I'm going to call him Drew. Okay, for Andrew. Drew Park. Okay, let's see. And you could do like something like P. Diddy, if you're Park, or Juju, or just some nickname that's kind of fun. And let's go ahead and choose a color. And it definitely helps if you use more brighter grunge. If you look at these examples, the brighter grunge here looks a little bit better than some of these darker grunge. So after you have the text, you're going to go to the rectangle tool, or U, and then you're going to draw a rectangle right over the top. Hold down the space bar, you can reposition it, and kind of like that. Just make sure it's a little bit exact. Okay, I'm going to, if you hit, there we go. Alright, so you can choose the color that you want, and I'm going to, let's see, go ahead and click on the rectangle tool at the bottom right, and also the layer Drew Park, my other text, and up here you can center this according to the page, according to that rectangle, which is the whole width of the page. Okay, now I'm going to be editing my text a little bit, and since it's all, you want to make sure it's big enough so you can see it, and hit Command R for your rulers, and you can kind of drag out your rulers if you want, just to make sure, because we're going to be editing the text a little bit. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to have intersected lines. So if you notice, these lines kind of intersect each other. So we're going to take a letter. And by the way, for the font, you want a font that has, let's see, flat bottoms for the more like block style. So for here, I could go down with the R, but the K, I don't have a letter going this way. Okay, so I'm going to actually go here with the K, okay, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to Command X, right, to delete that. If you hold on the V as in Victor and hold on the Option key, you can duplicate. I'm going to duplicate right over here, hit T for text, highlight it, and I'm going to put K. I'll show you what I'm going to be doing in a minute here. I'm going to move that K back to where it was. Okay, and I can use my guides to do so. We can hit Command T to transform, and what I can do is I can flip it to this other side. And again, if you don't need to flip it, that's okay. It's a little bit fine. You could even change one of the colors if you want to. Okay, maybe I want this. Hit enter. Use a space or the keys on the keyboard. Okay, maybe this one. I'm going to actually use yellow, maybe to match it. Let's go. But notice it's kind of hard to see, right? So I'm going to go in here. Maybe we can do like a darker K. And there we go. Just something maybe a little bit different. Okay, and there's my rectangle. If I want to change my rectangle, I can do color overlay. Hit function down here, hit color overlay, and then I can match it maybe. If I click on here and click on I can maybe click on that and maybe match those two. Okay. Again, be creative. You can totally decide how you want to do it as long as it looks good. So now I'm going to extend my K. So right here, I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to try to draw it down all the way. And I'm going to zoom out. Now this color needs to match the same color as this one. So I'm going to, and you should label it. So for rectangle 1, okay, maybe you can rename that top bar. That's my top bar. Maybe I'll put this K line, and I'll color overlay it so that it's the same as that one. Okay, and Command T to transform it if you need to adjust it in any way. And I'm going to Command plus and zoom in here, make sure that it's correct. Now I'm going to go at the angle, Command T to transform, okay, and I'm going to flip it this way. Now for the K, I could even flip my K over. So I could go to my K, Control click and hit K and hit Command T. You know, it's a fun thing. So I could even put it out a little bit if I need to. Okay. And I'm going to Control click K line, use a space bar, kind of move that around. And line it up. Use my space bar keys and get it. Okay. And with my R here, I'm going to click on the rectangle here and go straight down with my R. Okay. And I'm doing to color overlay. And I'm going to hit the I for eyedropper and click on the blue so it matches and hit OK. And then use my, click on the move tool, and we should be good. Get this out of the way so I can see where it's at. I'm going to call this R line so I don't get lost in it. And there we go. Now you want them to intersect though, so as best as possible. This one doesn't intersect. So I'm going to go back to my K line and maybe rotate a little bit more. Okay, right like that. And then I can actually hold down the shift key. Okay, I'm going to get my layers out here so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to use my command and select both of those, and I hit Command T, and I can actually transform, you know, to make them connect. Okay, so I can do something like that. And I'm going to go here and transform my K a little bit more. And done. Okay, line those up. All right, next we're going to fill in this space. So if you notice the space here in the middle, it's kind of empty with what we created. So I'm going to a little bit around and done. All right, there we connected it. So I'm going to use the lasso tool. Okay. use the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to, we need that guide though again, so you might want to put that guide back or put a new guide. And I'm going to start right in that corner of that guide and go right here. Actually go in the middle of your line, because you don't really need to go on the edge of the line. Okay, and then I'm going to go here and close it. So notice it's selected right here. So I'm going to create a new layer. Okay, I'm going to put this layer behind all of those lines and bars, and even the text. Okay, I'm going to call this triangle. It's our triangle selection. Okay, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to hit edit fill, and we're going to fill it into a color, and it doesn't really matter right now what color that is. We can change it later. Hit OK. But what I'm going to do is hit function f of x, and I'm going to show you what you can do, a pattern overlay. Okay, a pattern overlay. So if you notice here, if you click on pattern and you click here and then you go in tools, you have all of these textures. You can check on color paper, artistic, all these creative patterns, and you can kind of decide on a pattern that you want to use for this. Okay. You can also scale it. So if you scale it up, it kind of zooms in, or this is more dense. So kind of decide on your grunge-ish little pattern there. You can also change the opacity. Gives a different kind of color looks for that. You can also change your blend mode, but I'm going to keep it like that. And there we go. So we have it filled in. Next, with our graphic thing, we want to make sure we know the person's true name. So I'm going to hit, actually with this selection, I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to click on save selection. I'm going to call this triangle. So what that does is if I hit Command D to deselect, but I'm like, oh, I wanted to change, you know, this triangle texture, I can go into select, load selection, and then triangle, and hit OK, and notice that it selects it again, and I can easily change it. Okay, so I'm going to hit T for text, and I'm going to put the real name. And so for this, I'm going to change the font, and this font doesn't have to be, this can be any kind of font, right? Because I'm going to hit Command T to transform. I'm going to flip it on the side here like this, and we're going to make that smaller because we don't need it to be big. Okay, and we're going to put it on the inside like this. All right. And again, opacity, I'm going to maybe play with my opacity so it blends more in. It doesn't need to stand out. We want our name up here to stand out. So that should be good. You should, so that's the first part, and hopefully the background that you get, I'm going to show you how to do brushes, B for brush, and with our brush tool, we have some options here. We can click on our brush settings, and right here I can go in and let's see, bring my brushes over here so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. There we go, my brushes. All right, I'm going to click on this little part here. Okay, I'm going to see clear brush controls so you can see a little bit better. And I'm going to go up here and click on my brush and go to settings, and I'm going to click on import brushes. So the beauty of Photoshop is you can actually go online and search for Photoshop brushes, and there's a lot of free Photoshop brushes that you're able to download. You can check the description or directions for a grunge one that I am using, and I'm going to click on this. It's an ABR file. I'm going to hit open. So now I have these brushes here that I can find. If you look in your folder here, it's called Grunge. This is the one I used. and yours might be called different if you have a different grunge file. So with our grunge though, okay, I'm going to start creating it. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this brush, like grunge brush. Okay, and if I hit the right bracket, you can make your brush size very big or very small. Okay, so maybe I'll want to make my brush grunge similar to something like this. So I can basically click it like here and choose your color, and then I can like overlay it like this. Now if you see this line right here, you can erase, and then with your brush you can soften it, okay, so it's not a hard, so this is, see when I soften it, it erases all of it, but notice it's soft. Now if I don't want that to happen, I can go in here, E for eraser tool, and if it's hard, notice that it's like a hard erase. So instead I want to do a soft erase. Okay, a soft erase. And opacity, I can bring down my opacity of the erase so it's not as noticeable. Okay, and I can go in here and erase, you know, this line right here. So maybe 1% is too easy, and maybe 55% is too much. So maybe I can go like 33. There you go. So I can kind of like get rid of those lines right there a little bit. So yeah, now I have a splatter effect of this. Now notice here there's an edge. What I can do is hit V for Victor, hit Command T to transform, and I can actually take and transform the brush, hit down Shift, and make that bigger, right? And then I can scale that upwards so I can do the brush. Now I'm going to take this grunge brush and put it behind all of my layers, even my triangle layer. Okay, so it looks a little bit like that. And unless you like it like this, you could put it in with your triangle. I'll let you decide. You can also have something called a color overlay. You can search the web for grunge image, and you could take an image, and I'll take an image that I got on the web that was copyright free. And so what I can do is I can take an image here, and I can put it over my background. And then what I can do is in layers, I can hit multiply. Okay, so if I hit multiply, it will automatically blend what's in the background and the foreground together. And then I'm going to put my grunge brush on top of that. And here with my grunge, I can change the opacity down. So if I don't want it as much or as little. But notice my text is a little fading out. So I might want to go in here and take my text and make this like more of a black or darker color. So I can see a little bit better, right? And then my K as well. But if you do that, you also have to change your rectangles as well. So you might want to think twice if you change your colors. Okay, so for our background color with the grunge, I'm going to bring this down a little bit. And if you ever want to lock a layer, you keep selecting a layer, you can hit lock right here, and that way you can select something else and kind of stretch it to where you need it to go. Okay. If I wanted if I wanted this brush to the text to be seen a little bit better, I could make a new layer, and I could go into my brushes. I could choose a different style grunge brush, okay, and maybe I can choose white, okay, and then I can maybe go over the drew so you can see it a little bit better, see the background. So maybe I could do something like this, right? and I could even like kind of play around with it. So it's like, this is where your artistic features can come in, right? And now you can kind of see it much better. Now even with this, oh, and by the way, with your brushes, you have total control over your brushes. So in your brush settings, window, you go to view, or sorry, window, brushes. In your brush setting, you could do your spacing. So if you want the spacing of the brush scattered a little bit better, you can change the angle, you can flip it. There's just a lot of different, the texture of it, you can contrast the brightness, there's a scattering. I would play around with the different things that you can do with it, because notice the preview, it's changing as I'm changing my settings right here. So a lot of great stuff you can do with your brushes. So maybe I don't want that much opacity. I can change the opacity a little bit so it's a little bit more grungy-ish. And maybe I can put this, oh, I like that actually. See how there's not a straight line anymore for the rectangle, and kind of blends in a little bit better. So I'm really liking this one now. So I'm going to keep that. And there you go. So just play around with what you want to do with your grunge effects, and hopefully you'll have a really good background that you can use. Later, once you get your photograph, you can go in and go into, let's see, open recent. I think I have this one. So find a crazy picture that you took of yourself, and then you can go in here, image adjustments and curves. And I want to make the curves a little bit more contrasting, so it's a little bit easier to pick it out, like when I lasso it out, or when I magic wand it. So here I can select the white a little bit easier. Notice that it selected his face, so I'm going to change my tolerance down so it selects more of just him. Okay, so I'm going to also hold down shift key and you can add to your selection. So shift key, and try to find all the parts that you need to find. Okay, you can click on this mask tool and it shows what it took out. If there's pieces missing, that's fine. It's a grunge look. But if you hit B for brush, and we can go back to a normal brush, you can actually add to a selection. Okay, so we can go in here and see if this will select this part, and if you switch this part down here, okay, you can actually, it won't select his thumb here. So if I unselect this mask on the bottom left, notice that his thumb isn't selected and this part is, right? But I don't want that to happen, right? So I'm going to go in here and make sure that is selected, and then switch this back and make sure his thumb is selected, although it's the wrong brush that I need for this. All right, so I'm gonna just hold down shift again. You can select the parts, and there we go. And if that doesn't work, you can lasso it out, that's fine. Oh, and right now it's selecting just the white, so I need to inverse the selection. Command Shift I, and now it's selected just him. Command C, and I'm coming here, Command V, and there he is. And I'm gonna hit V as in Victor. Okay, I'm going to move, Command T to transform. I'm going to decide, I'm going to make him coming off the page. Okay, so it needs to be kind of big too. And we're going to do a cutout effect, and you can actually choose what kind of effect that you want to use. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to hit stylize and just choose something, and you can see the previews. Not emboss, filter, I'm going to choose stylize, maybe oil paint. Try oil paint, see how that looks. And that'll do a preview, see how that looks. Might look kind of scary, but hey, it's a little bit good. I can stick with that. Again, you can play with the different stylizations, and you can choose. Don't make something too scary though, like solarization. It's a little bit scary for that. If you want it grunge though, you can put it behind the grunge, but notice that's too much grunge, right, on his face. So I can actually come in here, click on this and drag it into the layer, and it duplicates the layer. I'm going to push this up, right, and then I'm going to opacity it way down, okay, way down, and let's see, I'm going to bring him up because I want him above all of this. There you go. And then that duplicated one, I'm going to bring that above him as well. Okay, and opacity. So that's the grunge look. Okay, so you can, if you want a little bit of grunge look on him, okay, you can hit eraser tool, and if you want to like make it erased, you can erase certain parts of it, but you want them to look a little grungy. But notice it's erasing this part so it's not so dark. Okay, if you look at the preview button over here, you'll see I'm just keeping a little bit of a grunge over his face, right? And so maybe a little bit less. There we go. Okay, all right, so there's a little bit of a grunge look, and we are done. So rock on. Maybe one day you'll cut your own rap album.